The Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I'm always happy to welcome Gene Ha back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, man.
It's good to be here. When I look up at the screen, I see a little red live 1 minute 32-second thing. Are we actually live streaming?
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I thought you knew that. Yes, we are live streaming. I'm glad you wore pants.
Oh no, you do not know for a fact that I am wearing pants.
That's true. That's very true.
Pajama pants.
I'm sorry, Lou. I'm sorry about that, Gene. I thought we've done live before, but we are indeed live.
I just can't do legal slander against people I get sued for, and you can't edit it out if I say that type of stuff. So
that's true. That's true. So don't break that on anybody. Here, we even have viewers. Mitchell Coleman wants to know how the weather is in Chicago, Gene.
I'm in Berwyn in the suburbs of Chicago. This afternoon when I walked to the voting place to early vote, it was really nice. I just opened the window and it is still nice. So Mitchell, it is nice outside.
It's going to warm up the next 2 days, and I think it's our last breath of summertime weather, even though we're well into fall. But yeah, man, no, there you go. Good shot of outside. Absolutely. Halloween just a couple days away. The vote, the election day is just a couple days away. I'm glad you voted early. I did as well. And what else can I tell you? We're excited to talk to you about people getting involved and advance ordering a fantastic pet project of yours. It's going to be coming out in the spring from Oni Press, and that's May.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful shot of our characters and our world. What can you say about May?
Well, I'll mention that it was previously released and I grabbed copies books because that's always useful.
Oh, please.
Previously released as 2 volumes, but now it is being released as 1 collected volume. So we got here's the previous volume 1. Here's the previous volume 2, and you'll notice that even though I am the creator of this book, this is a used library copy because for my extra copies, I have to buy them used online because the new version's coming out because it's sold out at the wholesale level worldwide for both volumes. So even I can't get a new copy of it at this point.
That's great, Gene. Congrats.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. It was a slow roll, but it was a steady seller. And now if I want to ever have anyone read the book again, they either have to buy a used copy, steal it from a friend, or hopefully order the new volume, double volume.
Understood. Take us back, Gene. What was the inspiration for doing May?
It was a few things. I mean, some of it was just I'm a huge fan of I'm gonna forget it. I mentioned before the show started, I'm horrible names, but Why I Hate Saturn.
Sure.
And I began essentially making fan fiction of it, in which the two main characters are sisters, one of whom is a reporter, and the other one is crazy and thinks she's the queen of the leather Saturn girls. And as I began playing around with these ideas, they kind of transformed into new characters in a new situation. And it was no longer a crazy sister who fictionally or probably falsely believes she's been in outer space, but instead of a sister who believes, in fact, that she has been on a fantasy world.
Ooh.
And the younger sister, May, who's been left behind for the last 8 years and just graduated from high school, can't believe the stories when her sister comes back about, I've been fighting mad scientists and monsters and leading barbarian warrior cats into battle, until the monsters start following her back to Indiana. Chaos breaks out. Their dad disappears. and they both are forced to go to the other world to find out what happened.
Excellent. Fantastic. And
just one more thing that's an important inspiration for this. It's also the fact that when I first started this around 2014, 2015, there were not a lot of main character geek girls in comics. They tended to be the people who sat behind on a radio talking to the main character saying, okay, go down the hallway. Now enter the fourth right door. No, the fourth right door through a headset. And I knew so many amazing female geeks. I thought, I think those guys could make a really interesting character if I made the main character of the book not the adventurous sister who went to another world and became an action hero, but the younger sister who actually finished school.
Oh, very nice. Excellent. Yeah. That's cool. And you had 2 successful Kickstarters. Didn't you have Kickstarters for this?
Just one, just for the first one.
Okay.
And then it went to Dark Horse, and then Oni, Line Forge Oni. And the 2 companies merged at some point, so now that's just called Oni.
Right. Okay. Very good. Yes. And so the new collected volume of both editions is coming out through Oni. Will we see more of May beyond volumes 1 and 2?
I should mention there's a little extra May in that I've did 12 extra pages of story.
Oh, great.
Where before, of course, it was 22-page standard American 22-page issues that got collected into a volume. And now that it's a bigger volume and I have a little bit of breathing space, I expanded the story in little places where I wanted to explain things better or give more interaction between some characters, show their emotions, explain what a fulminator is, which is an important device in the thing, but I never actually explain how it works.
Okay.
So a lot of things like that.
That's cool.
The new volume will give the history of why the older sister, when she was 13, when she found a doorway to another world, eventually decided she wasn't coming back.
Wow. More back matter for the collected edition?
There's a little bit more stuff. I'm going to say there's a little bit of extra art, a little bit of extra educational material, and there is a superstar artist who's a friend of both of us who did a pinup, but I cannot say it yet because the publisher wants to make it a big giant newsflash when they're ready to do the giant newsflash.
Okay.
But he's big.
All right, watch the Comic News websites to find out who's guest starring with a pinup in May for Gene Hive. That sounds cool. That's great.
Off camera, I will tell you who it is. Okay. And then other people, when you're off camera, can ask you, who is it or who are your friends? And then you can kind of give clues or something like that, or say, that person's a friend of mine. I'd like to meet that person someday, but
All right, fair enough. I wonder if I know this person. I'll be
you know this person.
Very good. Even better. Yeah. Very good.
You've known him for a while.
That's excellent, Gene. Man, Gene, you're one of the first Chicago guys I really got to know. And
really?
And I claim the suburbs as still being part of Chicago. I love the city snobs. They're like, well, no, Naperville isn't part of Chicago. It's like, relax. Okay, yeah, it is.
I like the carpet commercials. I like to say Chicagoland.
Exactly, Chicagoland, indeed. Hey, man, working in advertising as long as it did, certainly. Chicagoland absolutely is applicable. No, and I think I was telling you the other day, I hope I did. And if not, I know I've told others as well that, we were both in Orlando for a show back in the day. And you're like, John, come to breakfast, man. Meet a couple of the guys. I'm like, okay. And it was you, Matt Wagner, and Dave Johnson. And that really was so solid that you did me, man. And I've been friendly with the guys ever since. And this is very early in the days of Word Balloon. So thank you again for helping make the connection, man.
Oh, yeah. I still love those guys so much. So, yeah.
I just had Matt on and Kelly Jones talking about their big Dracula thing that they're doing. I try to do some Halloween-themed shows leading up to Halloween this year. In fact, tomorrow night, if you don't mind, I will plug. I'm gonna have a great conversation about 70s TV horror movies, but specifically ones that were made for TV. Because I know we're around the same age, and I think I'm a little older than you. But man, those movies of the week, and I mean, there's the obvious ones like Salem's Lot and the Night Stalker pilot and things like that, which were great movies. But I'm like, everybody knows those, or at least people in our age group. But I really wanted to talk about TV movies because the limitations of the budget and how how effective these guys and women were to make these movies. And then also, I wanted them because I noticed a lot of them are on YouTube. So that's gonna be a fun conversation. So we're doing that tomorrow night.
Oh man.
Here Rudy has a question or a comment. He says, May was such a fun world that Gene created. Would love any more May we can get.
It's not the biggest selling thing I do, but I have volume 3 plotted out. I have a big piece of cardboard, one room over in my attic studio, with just covered with Post-it notes, giving the structure of the pace of everything that happens in the next 6 issues. And I just have to take the break to do the book and just essentially, frankly, save up the money. I probably would do it as a Kickstarter. But yeah, it's a lot of things will really, really get explained out in the 3rd volume. The first 2 volumes tie up most of the loose threads and the big questions that were set up in the 1st volume. So at the end of the 2nd volume, most of it's tied up, but then it ends with a cliffhanger that then sets up what the new big questions are for volume 3. And
very cool.
We dive into it.
That's great, man. How did Kickstarter go for you? Is that your first and only Kickstarter that you've done?
My first and only one. Though I did have the pleasure of one of my big mentors for that Kickstarter was Jimmy Palmiotti, and I got to hang out with him at a convention. And he said, if you do another Kickstarter, I am here for you. If you need to know how to do anything in modern Kickstarter, I'll help you out. And I have a lot of other friends who've done Kickstarters. Like Ryan Brown comes to mind and stuff like that. He's a genius.
That's funny. I was going to say, I know locally Ryan Brown is that kind of expert at Kickstarter as well. And I know Jimmy is. And I love hearing that. And again, paying it forward, man. That's the beauty of a lot of the comic creators. They all try to do that, and I'll try to help each other. In fact, next Monday, I'll be talking to Dean Haspiel about his new Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And Wednesday, I'm talking to Dennis Cowan about his new Kickstarter.
I just got the email and got really excited because I saw Dean Haspiel's, is it his chest face?
Chest face, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know what Dean's smoking, but I love it. And then when he has a crazy idea, it's usually put down on paper and we all enjoy it. So that's great.
Yeah. It's Brooklyn Arnim Zola as a stand-up comedian who's sometimes forced to fight crime or something.
That sounds about right. He's obviously, I'm sure he's familiar with the Red Hook. It's part of Dean's Brooklyn verse of superheroes and stuff. So no, I think that's great. And on Wednesday, I'm going to record it. Dennis Cowan and I are talking about his art of Dennis Cowan, and it's kind of a historic look back and everything. Nice coffee table book that they're putting together. So. Yeah, it's the season, man, for all the Kickstarters. Like I said, I talked to Matt and Kelly about Dracula last week.
Oh, man. Yeah, I was in Memphis and I was hanging out with Matt Wagner, and yeah, he told me about like a lot of stuff he did with the Dracula stuff and the things that are coming up. So it's cool seeing it actually come to fruition. So
people should go to Oni, to the Oni website to pre-order, or how should they do this?
Actually, okay. So May is spelled MAE. It's probably the easiest way to do it is you just do it's the new collected edition of the 2 volumes is called the Definitive Edition. So if you do May Definitive Gene Ha, I'm trying to remember. Because all the book distribution moved away from Diamond and is now either Penguin Random House or Simon & Schuster. And just off the top of my head, I can't remember if it's Simon & Schuster or Random House, but you can just order, find out all the details that way. Here we go. Hold on a second.
No problem.
I should have had this ready. Okay.
It's all right.
May Definitive Edition. Simon & Schuster.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Let me see. So the official release date is April 8th.
Excellent. Fantastic. God, we were talking again off the air.
Yeah. I
saw you at Terrificon, and you got to hang out with me and my buddy Chuck, and you and your wife Lisa, and we had a nice lunch at was that who's
Bobby
Burger
Flay's
place?
Hamburger Place.
Bobby Flay's Burger Place. Yeah. So it was all right.
Yeah, I didn't know you were coming, so it's just like, hey, I know that guy.
I got to be honest. I've had better and bigger burgers than what we had at Bobby Flay, but it was fine. It was decent.
Yeah, I really like my burger, but I will say, boy, it's kind of hard to top like Kuma's Corner or something like that in Chicago.
Yes, absolutely. And everyone that's listening should, if you go to Chicago, there are 2 Kuma's locations, one in the suburbs in Schaumburg, one in the city, and it's great because it's a heavy metal themed burger place.
Yeah,
and that's the music they play. They design their burgers and name them after heavy metal bands. It's very, very funny. It's a great also place for microbrews as well. A big selection of microbrews. Fantastic place. Now I'm a big fan of. Yeah, I would agree with that. How about Hackney's? Gene, you ever go to Hackney's in Glenview?
I've seen that place. I've never been to it. I didn't know. I didn't know if it was really great or not. So
yeah, it's an old town. It's an old Glenview favorite and everything. And I grew up going to Hackney's. It's still there. Local favorite. God, I don't know about you, man, but it cracks me up. I'm on Facebook, and as most of us are, and there are groups about Chicago pizza, and of course deep dish. But there's great groups that are real pizza snobs about thin crust pizza, and I love that because my dad always made thin crust pizza at his place that started in the 50s and ran until Giordano's bought it in 1979. And it's the Giordano's that's on Irving and Austin on the west side, right by the Patio Theater.
yeah, I'm gonna say most of the places that make really great deep dish pizza also make a really great tavern style pizza. The Chicago style thin crust. So if you're not from Chicago, if the idea of pizza casserole makes you want to retch, go for the thin crust tavern style.
Absolutely, man. No, it's great, and it is different than like I said. We were in Connecticut and they had Pepe's. And that's a good thin crust pizza, but very different. And also, we have different kinds of thin crust pizza. I mean, that's what I always say. It's like I appreciate New York pizza, but I really do think Chicago has a great variety. And the tourists know about the deep dish, but it's like, no, man. I mean, we've been doing thin crust, since the 40s.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, Chicago deep dish is kind of like birthday cake. You don't eat it like as a regular meal. Usually it's like, oh, it's a special event. Maybe we'll get a deep dish. Everyone,
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, most people tend to eat like a thin crust pizza as a regular thing.
Absolutely. A little Chicago talk. Why not?
Yeah. Or even a Sicilian style or New Haven pizza or something like that too. So we do it good.
Big fan.
Patience.
Yep. Absolutely. No, I agree. Yeah, like New Haven is kind of like what you get at Pepe's and stuff in Connecticut and everything. That's really good. I'm with you. Well, this has been a big year for you too, because you and Phil Jimenez and Nicholas Scott and Kelly Sue DeConnick, you all were involved with Wonder Woman Historia. Fantastic thing. You did volume 2?
I did, yeah, volume 2. And in fact, in the mail today, I just my editor Chris Conroy on that book mailed me my new Eisner. So it's on a shelf right over there.
Nice. Is this your first, Gene, or have you had others?
This is now my 5th.
Your 5th Eisner. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Gene.
Yeah, I should mention, I've never won an Eisner for best artist on anything. Not best interior artist, not best cover artist. I'm always win Eisners for either the issue or the title or the graphic novel.
Okay.
So I'm on championship teams, but I'm not the MVP championship player.
Oh, but let's not sell your stuff short. Now that you mentioned that you had 5,
everyone has to be really strong on a championship team. So I'm not. Yeah,
absolutely, man. Obviously, am I right? One of the Eisners was for that great issue of Justice League you did, where Red Arrow and Vixen, not Vixen, was it Vixen?
Vixen
that were trapped in the hole.
Yeah. And Brad Meltzer wrote the issue, and he'd done all this research. I think it was for one of his novels, but about what it's like to be trapped in a cave-in or a building collapse. And then all the stuff he didn't use in the novel is like, I've learned so much about how incredibly intense and paranoid it is. I can put this into a comic script and also deal with the visuals of it. But in fact, it's actually, most of the issue is supposed to be so dark they can't see where they are, though you can.
Yeah, go on. Finish your thought, Gene, and I'll ask you a question.
And like a lot of the twists of the issue are just like, it's that fun thing of like, it's like classic Hitchcock of, the reader knows some things before the actual characters do, and they're describing like trying to figure out where they are, and you can see it, but they can't see it. And
but also a lot
bigger revelations of what's happened to them.
a lot of the panels also are kind of blacked out. You can see a little bit, as I remember, if my memory is right.
Yeah, they're very blacked out.
So how'd you do that, Gene? I mean, did you know you were only going to have so much space in a panel where you're going to see something, so you minimize the drawing, or did you do a full panel and then knowing that you were going to focus on an area and black it out?
Brad Meltzer and I had a friendly argument where he said he wanted to get the building to kind of like settle as they're trapped inside of it. And it's Vixen and Red Arrow. Neither of them have the type of superpowers where they can just bust out. And as it settled, he wanted the panels to get thinner and thinner, but also the gutters between the panels, the white space in the pages, to get bigger and bigger. And I felt like this was a little bit cheating if I did this. So I said, I could just do tighter and tighter close-ups and stuff. And he's like, Gene, you have to trust me on this. Draw less and less on every page. And in a way, by the end of the book, it was one of the easiest books to draw ever because it was very dark, very little background, and like 2/3 of the page was empty by if you read DC Comics, you know that both these characters have survived. So
yes.
They do eventually get out. But yeah, before they get out, like 2/3 of the page was just white gutters with very tiny, thin panels, widely spaced between those gutters.
That was a great issue and a great run. Yeah.
Yeah. Psychologically, he's right. It worked in a way like doing tighter and tighter close-ups and stuff like that wouldn't have worked.
That's cool. No. That's really cool. Jace. And so did you get one for top 10?
Actually, I got 2 for top 10.
Oh, great. Man. All right. Well, first of all, and I'm sorry I don't have the image up, but Wonder Woman Historia, how did you end up in that project? Again, there were 3 different artists, giant graphic novels, 64-page graphic novels each? Or 48?
Each one was about 48 pages long. I did the middle chapter, which came out first as a big European album-sized comic book. But the way I got on the book is I hadn't, to my knowledge, met Kelly Sue DeConnick. And I'm at a convention in the South, I think it was Heroes Con, and on an airport shuttle, and I'm riding with somebody who I don't know either, but it's a guy, it's not Kelly Sue DeConnick. And he introduces himself, and it's Matt Fraction. So we chat a little bit, get to the hotel, split up, and the next morning at breakfast, he sees me, and he says, Gene, goes over to my table and says, I want to know if you'd be interested in a book. And he then tells me, it's not my book, though. It's my wife, Kelly Sue DeConnick's. And I say, okay, I'm in. He's like, do you want me to tell you about the book? Yes, but I'm in. And then he described as much as he knew about Wonder Woman Historia. And and then kind of the pandemic happened and all that type of stuff by the time I started. So I didn't meet her, to my knowledge, until like after the book was done. I talked to her on the phone, video chat, all that type of stuff, lots of emails, but hadn't gotten to meet her. Though later, we met at Rose City Comic Con in Portland, and then inside of the Netherlands. And she told me that we had actually met, but not been introduced properly inside of San Diego long ago, before she was a well-known comics writer, in which a kind of obnoxious, I think, comic artist, I can't remember who it was, had kind of cornered her at a bar and was hitting on her obnoxiously and wouldn't let her go. And I was hanging out with this guy, and then I made an excuse so she could escape from the table. And she'd always remembered I'd done that. I was like, oh, I do not remember doing that. I think I actually remember who I was, the conversation and some of the people I was with. I'm not sure which of those guys was the obnoxious one, but yeah, I am glad I was cool then.
That's awesome, man. That's very funny. I met them both at the same San Diego show in 2006, and I had Matt on before I met him face to face, and Kel was pregnant at the time. And poor Kel was like 7 or 8 months pregnant. I mean, she was big. And, we're, San Diego is, and, we're at the Hyatt and everybody's there. And I'm like, guys, let's sit down. I'm like, Kel, you poor thing. I'm like, you don't have to stand here all night and stuff. I go, come here, let's go in a corner, and we did. We ended up leaving the main room of the Hyatt in one of the other bar areas, and just hung out, and we talked baseball for a good portion of the night. But really, that's when I really bonded with Matt and Kelly Sue. And yeah, I mean, I love them both. I always say they're like my little brother and sister, and they're geeks. Kel's a full-fledged geek, and I knew that from our first conversation. When she brought up Modesty Blaze, I'm like, okay. I'm like, she's cool. Exactly, man. 60s British spy character, if you don't know, folks. But a great one, and a great movie about Modesty Blaze, but really a fantastic comic strip that you can find collected editions of if you look for them. But so Phil Jimenez was the first guy to draw volume 1.
Yes.
Was that a template of how to do? I mean, how did approaching this happen?
Okay, so before I knew Phil Jimenez had done the first volume, or was working on it when I started, and he was still working on it very intensely. And my assumption going in was that we have roughly similar skill sets, roughly similar levels of detail, and superhero action sensibilities. So it shouldn't be too hard for me to follow in a very natural, successor to his issue. But what I hadn't realized is that he'd upped his game intensely for this because he loved the project so much, and he loves Wonder Woman so much. Wait a minute, I'm going to show everybody here.
Sure.
So there's 2 covers you'll find for the hardcover Historia. And this is the retailer edition. And if you get the non-retailer edition, the inside of the dust jacket is white. But if you get the retailer edition, the interior of the dust jacket, here's the exterior, the interior.
Wow. Yeah.
And you can kind of see the intensity of costume design he did here.
Absolutely.
And I've described it as Margaret Atwood writing a script for Stanley Kubrick and Alexander McQueen to film. I still have never seen anything to this level of detail before in a comic book. I had a friend, a Chicago artist friend who's very well known, look at the book and say, he's doing more detail than the human eye can perceive. A lot of this is kind of pointless, except you can feel the details there, even if you can't make it all out. And I realized, no, there's no way I'm going to do anything like what Phil is doing with this issue. I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I will get carpal tunnel by the time he does it. And he started like several months, like 6-7 months before I did. And he was only done 3 months before me. He spent like over a year on 48 pages, and you can see it in the book. It
Absolutely.
Is I mean, look at this. So you've all seen like George Perez Wonder Woman cityscapes, which are insane.
Sure. Yeah.
And then he does stuff like this. You can see this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to see how close I have to hold this page to there so you can see all the architecture.
Yes.
There are other scenes like that. I mean, just incredibly complex costumes, I will say. And the only place where my job was harder than his is he also did incredibly complicated costumes where he only drew them from the front. And I had to draw them in rotation, moving around, looking up and down. It's kind of like, I can't figure out the geometry of this. It was so hard. But still, he put in a level of work where I could not compete with him playing the same game. And I had to figure out other tricks to kind of make my issue special.
Well, you did it, and also I didn't, and I understand, because again, Phil's stuff, good Lord, you could pour over every section of each page. And I mean, even to the point where he would design like Grecian urns and got intricate with the art that's on the urns and things like that. So yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, in his issue, they had a representation of the history of injustice against, well, they had 2 double-page spreads on it. The history of the injustice against women, in which they did, so it didn't become torture porn. They did the female figures who were suffering as red outlines or red silhouettes.
Yes.
But on the second double-page spread, you can see that the first one I just showed you was very detailed. The second one he did is...
Yeah.
And yeah, I think he did this digitally. So each of these urns has a visual storytelling on it of a specific scene, which he drew in reasonable detail, even for the smallest ones. And I can't compete. There's no way any other artist I know alive who could compete on that, doing the same thing he did. I can show you the scene I did to get the same point across in the second volume.
Okay, yeah, please.
And this, I love this because I call Kelly Sue DeConnick is like the greatest captain of a comic book team I've ever been part of. And part of that is, of course, she picked her team really well, and she worked with picked them based on their talents and stuff like that, and knowing how she was going to use their talents, and then trusting them even if she wasn't sure how they're going to solve a problem. So she had a scene here where Hera is talking about how has been injustice throughout history and prehistory against women. There's injustice against women now in ancient Greek times, and even so 1,000 years into the future.
Wow.
And the description of the scene in the script was, I need to show 3,000 years of injustice against women using Hera, feathers, and birds. And she didn't explain how to do it. She wasn't sure how I was going to do it. And this is the answer I came up with.
What?
Which is
zooming in.
There
we go.
The birds and the feathers fly out from her fan, in the spaces between those birds and feathers, I drew a different scene representing either an injustice against women or women fighting against injustice. And then just tying it all together. Oh, and then the last scene is Mary Wollstonecraft, the mother of the science fiction writer who invented science fiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She's writing, anyway, her mother is writing A Vindication of the Rights of Women, which is a response to the Vindication of the Rights of Men, saying that women deserve rights too, which in the English language was the most important first feminist tract.
Interesting.
Yeah. And anyway, the bird is giving her a feather to write the story, to write the treatise with.
Did you talk to Phil at all before starting your drawing?
Oh yeah. But I mean, when I saw the visuals, it was just
yeah, I'm sure.
intimidating. And the thing is, he would keep making the details more and more intense as he drew them. Like, he would sometimes draw an incredibly elaborate Alexander McQueen looking design, and then he decided wasn't intricate or elegant or awe-inspiring enough, and he would redraw it more complex, bigger, and more fantastic. And
That's
sometimes
amazing.
I draw something based on his first design. It's kind of like, I'm not redrawing that. I'm not Phil.
And then in kind, did Nicola approach you at all in terms of, all right, how are you handling this? Nicola Scott, who did volume 3, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. And I call Nicola. Well, okay. So I kind of divide the 3 chapters into the first volume is Phil's journey into the divine realm.
Right.
Very surrealistic. And then a short section outside of Earth. Mine's the Dark Night of the Soul. It's kind of a surreal nightmare situation. And if you look, you can see, like, one of the things I did here is to represent the goddesses. You'll see both our version of Artemis standing between the trees, and then if you
Pull back
a little bit, you'll see that a face is forming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And to represent the gods, I did hidden faces in the backgrounds that formed that way.
That's amazing. Yeah. So did Nick have any questions, or how did you have any advice for Nicola when she took on volume 3?
Nicola had the great advantage that by the time she started, both Phil and I were almost done with our volumes. So she had a stable selection of things to do, and then she was able to draw things as this there's a lot of sad things that happen in her volume, but as this kind of joyous, crisp, bright light of day. So that's what I call her issue, the bright light of day.
Interesting.
Where, it's very vivid.
Yes.
It's very solid. And she's just able to, I mean, you already know what all the costumes look like. She doesn't have to obsessively draw them, but she does draw them. Oh my God, look at the scene.
Sure. Whoop, hold on. Zooming in again. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good thing there aren't that many characters. I'm kidding.
Yeah. I've still never seen anything like what Phil did. But yeah, I am so in love with what Nicholas Scott did, and just it just it's this is the Wonder Woman Historia is the history of the Amazons before the coming of Wonder Woman. And,
Right. It ends with Diana's birth.
right,
And it
yeah,
really is Hippolyta's story. And
yeah,
also how the male gods were shitty to the Amazons and everything.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just it goes through a huge amount of from joy to tragedy inside of Nicola's volume, and then the coming of the baby who will grow up to be Wonder Woman.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I just talked to Kelly Thompson about Absolute Wonder Woman that just came or is coming. Actually, no, it did come out last Wednesday. I keep getting my timeline wrong. And I asked her, and she said, "Oh yeah." She goes, "I didn't want it to be beholden to Historia because it's a Black Label book." But
Yeah.
she's like, there are definitely nods in what I did and her artist, and in terms of being inspired by what you guys did in Historia, because all the Absolutes are very different origins
Yeah.
than the classic DC Universe versions and stuff. So yeah, it was interesting, and I really think it's kind of almost a companion piece to what you guys did with Historia in a lot of good ways.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna name check somebody where it's like, I'm not trashing you as a writer, but Brian Azzarello did the New 52 run of Wonder Woman, and there's so many things I enjoyed about that. But I was not happy that he'd made Wonder Woman the daughter of Zeus, and it was supposed to be originally she was a character who was created by women and female goddesses only, with no man involved, and then by making her just a regular demigod, Greek demigod, it kind of got rid of what made her special. And then, even that's not so much a problem. We fix things or change things all the time inside of comics, the way Brian did.
Sure.
Then they put it in the movie. That
Yeah,
the movie that
you're right.
She's the daughter of Zeus, and it's kind of like, oh, the timing of that was awful.
Yeah, that's too bad. No, you're right about that. And our good friend Tony Akins, another great Chicago guy, drew that run. Or was it him? Wasn't it him and Cliff Chang? Did they alternate?
Yeah. Cliff Chang was the I think did the first issues, and then sometimes then Tony did some of them. But and I love that run, but that thing annoyed me. But again, it was something you could, it's like you have these changes back and forth on the history of the character time, but then they put it in the movie, and it's kind of like, oh, now it's in the popular consciousness beyond comic geeks. Anyway, in Historia, that is not Wonder Woman's origin, and I'm pretty sure like every other writer who's doing Wonder Woman since, at least in comics, she is no longer the daughter of Zeus.
No, Kelly's story is very different. Kelly Thompson. No, that's great, man. Now, and I know it was a different art style and a different way of using detail, but of course I have to ask you a little bit about Top 10.
Yes.
Because I loved it and it was so great. And really, Gene, it hit me at the right time, because this is really when I was just coming back to comics, and it's like, oh man, look what, I was aware of Alan Moore. I loved his Swamp Thing stuff from the 80s.
Yeah.
But this was if people don't remember Top 10, you really need to find it, because it's Alan Moore, Gene, and Xander Cannon. And it's superhero cops in a superhero world.
Yeah.
And there you go. Here, let's zoom in again.
This is the European Spanish edition.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
I'm going to say that it's funny that you're saying that essentially Alan Moore was really important to bring you back into comics, because when I was in middle school, I'd stopped reading comic books. And then as I was in middle school and high school, a friend of mine, Lowell Francis, showed me Alan Moore comics. And that's what got me to become a teenage comic geek. And then eventually, of course, after I became a professional comic geek, I tracked down Alan Moore and was like, I need to draw one of your books, please. So,
really, you pursued him?
Oh yeah.
Wow. So tell me how you got the Top 10 gig.
Okay, so you had an ad here for Alex Ross at the start of the show. He's part of this. So Alex Ross at the time was doing covers for Supreme at also I can't remember the name of the guy who created Deadpool.
Rob Liefeld's.
Rob Liefeld's Maximum Press. And I said, I'm so jealous that you're getting to work with Alan Moore. And I was talking to Alex Ross on the phone. He said, well, why don't you just try to get a job with Alan Moore? And it's like, oh yeah, I guess I should. So I tried to follow Alan to Maximum Press. Maximum Press, it was a chaotic time in comics. Maximum Press collapsed for a while. Rob Liefeld got back into comics again later, but then Alan Moore moved to a new company called America's Best Comics, a sub-imprint of Wildstorm. The editor there, Scott Dunbar, knew my work, but Alan didn't. So I had to collect together a big pile of my comic books, mail them to San Diego, and then they mailed them to England. And Alan liked my stuff, so I became one of the initial artists of the first America's Best Comics books.
It's great, and in a different way, you have your pages in Top 10 that are giant pages, and there's a lot of bits of business that are happening in the background, whether it's a billboard or a couple characters that are silent, but they're obviously having a scene. I remember one image that I loved was, if everybody knows the original Red Tornado of the Golden Age, she used to have the stew pot on her head for her costume. That was her helmet. And there's a whole family that clearly is inspired by Red Tornado. And there's a kid with a frying pan on his head and all these other, pots and pans to illustrate a Red Tornado-like family and stuff. But it was, again, it was a feast for the eyes as much as the words were, because you'd put all this information in. And I assume, and you'll confirm for me, that a lot of that might have been Alan's notes.
At the start of Top 10, probably about 2/3 of it was in the script, but pretty quickly it dropped off. And by the last issues, and especially in all of the 49ers, only about 1/3 of the stuff was his. And he might say even just give a theme. And then after that, then I would be expected to fill in the theme, like pre-World War II comic book Flying Aces. And as much research as I could do at the time, the internet was much smaller then, but as much research as I could do, I could only find like 4 or 5 of them. And I was supposed to fill the whole bar with them. So then if you look at that scene inside of the 49ers, it is actually also full of real aviators.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, there's the famous fictional ones. Oh, and then, I can't remember her name, right? Bessie something, famous aviator. But yeah, they're all inside the bar.
Oh, Bessie Coleman.
Oh, Bessie Coleman, that's it.
Yeah, Bessie Coleman. We've got a highway named after her here in Chicago. Absolutely.
Part of the reason I thought that I wasn't going to
hold on, zooming in
detail inside of Historia is I'd done scenes like this.
Yeah.
And as detailed as that scene I just held up was, no, Phil just blew me out of the water with Historia.
I understand, but again, there's some key. There's. I know in Top 10 early on, they're at like an interdimensional airport.
Oh yeah.
And you got that big wide shot of like the whole airport and everything. And again, there's just awesome little bits of business going on. It's like Sergio Aragonés doing his little doodles that he would do in the gutters of Mad Magazine. But it's like, just throw that on a page with, good backgrounds and everything else. I mean, my God. And also like not only the characters, but it's a superhero world. So every product is on a billboard, has a superhero like kind of theme to it. And you might even hear like there are commercial jingles coming from a radio. Here, hold on, zooming in.
Yeah. On the first page here, Alan didn't specify many of the characters that were supposed to show up in this scene. So I just had to come up with it's an interdimensional alternate Earth dimension hopping station.
Yes.
So I just had to make up almost all of the characters showing up in that scene myself. And then I did not have the next page of script. And then when the next page of script went, he finally did name some characters I could throw in. But he kept on naming the people I'd shown in the previous page. Because he hadn't seen the art yet. So then I had to make up a whole new set of characters who dimension hop for that scene. One of the things I did is I threw in a lot of Alan Moore characters.
Stand by.
Yeah. Mirror image. It's not a mirror image. Yeah, so you'll see all these references to Alan Moore comics where it has dimension hopping. And then Quantum Leap. Let me see. I can't remember the one where they had the pocket watches to let you travel on between history and on that TV show.
Oh, I don't remember that. That's cool. I wonder what show that was.
God, yeah, it was like a kid who's probably like 14 years old, and then an adult dimension hopper who needs a kid who knows history to help him hop around. It was like an evening, like ABC or something.
Explorers, wasn't that Explorers?
Oh, that was it. Yeah, that was it.
On NBC. Sure, I remember that show. I didn't watch it, but I remember that show. Yeah, hilarious. Jesus, man. No, good stuff. Good stuff, Gene. Absolutely. And then after Alan left, you and Xander did a top 10 miniseries, didn't you? Or a
So we did. Me and Xander Cannon did layouts. We actually started off with. I needed someone to help me speed up. We experimented with him doing pencils, me doing inks, me doing pencils, and him doing inks, and figured out pretty quickly if he just did a rough layout, I could do everything else much more quickly. And in fact, I don't know. Xander's probably not watching this, but I'm probably going to, for the unnamed project I'm doing after Gail Simone's Minor Threats spinoff, for the big 5-issue thing I'm doing after that, I am probably going to bug Xander to ask if he can do layouts for me again.
Hey, great.
See. If you're listening, this is an official offer, Xander. And if not, I'm going to make the official offer somewhere where you are reading or listening to it. So, because
that's great.
Issues long.
That's excellent, man. That's cool. All right, so yeah, you got a Gail Simone project coming up.
Yeah. And I'm doing Minor Threats. There's a spin-off book from that called The Alternates, which has a character called Crab Louie, who his face is essentially one lobster forming the bottom of his face and his mouth and nose, another lobster forming the tops of his face and the top of his brows. So draw that. And I'm so glad I bought these. I bought plastic lobsters so I can go like this and kind of model it myself.
Okay. That's hilarious. Jesus.
Model Maryland blue crab in reasonable detail.
Very good.
And I haven't used this yet, but I also even thought I haven't quite figured out a use for it, but I also have a little tiny D&D action figure of a crab man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's terrific. So are you just getting started on that?
Let me see. I've been going insane with the roughs on it. So I did pencil roughs, then I did tighter roughs with dialogue. So all the lettering done in, so I can make sure that I have enough space. It's a pretty wordy script. The words are excellent though. It's not overly wordy, but there's a lot of internal dialogue showing up in the thing, and then dialogue showing up. And let me see. I'm going to show you kind of like a rough page.
Sure.
Not a finished thing.
Oh, this is great.
It's been announced, and Gail Simone has talked about it online. But I'm not going to show you the images. They're not releasing yet. Okay.
No problem.
I tend to draw in Procreate nowadays. Yeah.
You tend to draw what?
Okay. Oh, in Procreate on an iPad Pro.
Oh, very good.
So, yeah, here's a little preview image. And that's Crab Louie in the bottom corner there.
Interesting.
Wrong way.
There you go. There you go.
And you can see his big lobster face.
Sure. Yeah. Hilarious.
Let me show you one of the.
Yeah, please.
This is what so I did the loose pencil rough, then the tighter rough with shading and lettering, and I'm working with colorist Wesley Wong, and so I don't have to give him too many directions about lighting. I try to establish the lighting inside the rough, so you can see here.
Stand by.
That's what a page looks like at that stage.
Oh, great. Great.
And that's not the final colors, obviously. That's just to show color regions or color themes, and use a different color theme here, use a different color theme here. It's not supposed to be like a purple panel. It's not supposed to be a turquoise panel.
Okay. Okay. Do we know the publisher?
Oh, Dark Horse. Yes,
Dark Horse.
Minor Threats. Yeah, from Dark Horse Comics.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm hoping to talk to Patton very soon about. He's putting together a collection of great Marvel stories that is interesting because it really, with the exception of a Ditko Stan Lee Spider-Man story, a lot of it is from the 90s and the 2000s, and it's good to see more recent stuff kind of get its due in this kind of collection and stuff. So yeah, I'm like I said, it's not we just kind of negotiated the initial possible talk, but we'll find a day and we'll make that happen. I'm looking forward to it. I had Patton on my show. God, he did a movie called Big Fan, and it was so up my alley because he was this very tortured football fan that calls into sports radio and has his own little persona and everything. He doesn't go by his real name. I don't remember what his character was. It was the guy who wrote the Wrestler movie that Mickey Rourke made. That was such a great movie from 15 years ago, almost 20 years ago now, and terrific movie. And Rick Remender, who's friends with Patton, got me Patton for the show. And I told him, I said, dude, I used to screen calls at our local sports talk radio station. And I'm like, they nailed that whole dynamic of the caller that really wants that perfect call. And he's got his notes on his legal pad and everything. And as obsessive as some, nerdy comic book fans, that's how some of these sports fans are and stuff. Great movie. And so if people want to look for it, again, it was called Big Fan. And I certainly will mention that when I talk to Patton again. But yeah, he's been killing it lately, man.
Oh man, much like Kelly Sue DeConnick, I still have not. I've met Gail Simone, but I have not met Patton Oswalt yet. So someday I would like to hang out with him.
Oh, of course.
Just see how his brain works, because it's so amazing the things he comes up with and how he's so observant. He's so good at dissecting what makes cheap pop culture fun and great and sometimes deep. Like you said, like the 90s stuff was like, I kind of feel like I came into comics in a little bit of a dark age of comics.
Sure. What was your first pro year breaking through, Gene?
It would have been about 1995, 96. I did let me see, a Green Lantern issue. Let me see. And I also did, and then pretty early on, I also did some, an X-Men annual, but it was an era where there were superstar artists, but you weren't selling books by having superstar writers. So the writing was devalued, and there was great stories coming out, but they weren't the stars, even if they deserved, though so often they deserved to be. And if you had kind of a crappy story with a star artist on it, it could still sell.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll be honest, Gene, that was kind of when comics turned me off, when that was happening, because I'm a story guy. I mean, I love great art, of course, and interesting art. But yeah, it really was kind of that period of Brubaker and Rucka and Bendis in the very late, like 98, 99 period, that I heard, hey, this guy is writing Daredevil right now. And it was Kevin Smith, actually. That was the first thing, was like, hey, Kevin Smith's writing Daredevil, and it kind of reminds me of Frank Miller's Daredevil. And I'm like, well, I love Frank Miller's Daredevil. I'm like, let me check this out. And then I found Bendis and Brubaker and Rucka and that wave, and Gale was part of that wave as well. So that kind of brought me back full time.
Yeah, and I, as an artist, I think the art in a comic book is incredibly important, but the art is the servant of the story. It's not even the servant of the writer, it's the servant of the story. And you're there to make the story better and to make that story sing. And if you're struggling to take a bad script and make it readable, that's not the same thing as taking a brilliant story and making it really fly.
I hear you, man. Absolutely. One thing, and it's funny, we're talking Halloween week and everything, that I remember you did, it was a Marvel double shot, and it was an Iron Fist story, if I remember correctly. And it kind of had a horror bent to it, if I remember. Describe the story.
Oh, okay. So I'm not going to name the original writer on that project, but my editor was Stuart Moore at Marvel, and he said I could pick any writer I wanted who they could get. And the one I named that we could get, he signed on to the book, but then he went radio silent when the script was due. Wasn't answering his phone, wasn't answering messages. I think we were doing email by that time. And Stuart said, well, Gene, there's only one creator on this team that you put together left. So now you're the writer too.
Wow.
And I had never written anything before, but I was overconfident because I've read so many scripts and drawn so many scripts. I think I understand comic book storytelling.
Sure.
And Stuart Moore had to take me, for a 12-page story, had to take me through 5 drafts.
Wow.
Before we kind of banged all the problems out. And he had to explain to me, okay, here's why the story's not working at this point. Here's the things you need to put into the story, or have the story do to make it actually work. And it was an Iron Fist story. He's spent years in a monastery, not just studying how to fight, but also how to be a good person. And it's like, okay, he's fighting against a person who's involuntarily turned into a monster. Shouldn't he be a little more concerned about the person he's fighting with? And just like he made me look at the whole story from each character's viewpoint. And the way he did that was just like amazing. And it just changed how it changed how I read stories. It changed how I draw stories. And of course, it totally transformed how my infant way of writing stories. And that's what led me eventually to doing May. But yeah, it taught me how much he taught me how much I had to learn. I'm forever in his debt.
That's great, man. No, Stuart's another friend, and I remember that issue quite well. And I'm a sucker for a good Iron Fist story. So I'm sorry it took so many drafts, but you guys nailed it.
Well, I'm not sad it's that many drafts. I'm sad that Stuart had to coach me through so many drafts.
Sure.
But he got me to the point where I understood what I needed to do with the story better, and that was like such a graduate level course, such a master class. I'm lucky he was my editor on that.
That's excellent. So going back to your Eisners, so you had one for Astoria, you had two for Top 10, you had the Justice League story. So what was the fifth? What's the fifth Eisner?
Actually, I think I had 3 for Top 10.
Oh,
so it's like one for a
there you go. There's the math.
Yeah, best new series and then continuing series. I think that's how it went.
That's great, man. No, I'm again. I love Top 10. You know, I know Alan has his issues with DC that now owns the Wildstorm properties. So
yeah,
I'm sure that's one of the blocks in terms of if we were ever going to get more Top 10. But I really again, not only did I love what Alan did, but I loved what you and Xander did, and a couple of the other miniseries that came out of it as well. Yeah, I just thought it was a really neat little universe.
Yeah, I wish I drew faster because there's so many things I want to draw, and one of them is you mentioned before that I did a 4-issue series with Xander Cannon with us in the Top 10 universe, and then after I dropped out, somebody else was supposed to take over, but they could never find anybody else, and essentially. What I've heard is that DC has decided that they don't want to do a Top 10 series that doesn't have either Alan Moore or Gene Ha on it, or both of us. And out of that list, there's only one of us still willing to work for DC. So if I want to see there's 4 more issues of story at least 4 more issues that Xander has plotted out. And if it's ever going to see the light of day, I have to draw it. And I want to see that story hit the light of day someday. But I just have to schedule it out because I have 5 issues of the unnamed thing that I want Xander to do layouts for. I have the Crab Louie Minor Threats project with Gail Simone, which I'm being a little insane about getting everything right. Greg Capullo's gotten a lot of crap lately at this moment for saying that you have to put in like so many insane 15-hour days or something like that to get a comic book out. Which you don't have to if you work smarter, not harder. But I try to work harder and smarter, and I make my life complicated. So I'm a bit like Greg Capullo that way. Don't do that, kids, if you can help it. It's good to have friends and family and raise kids and all that type of stuff. And yeah, those are all good things in life.
I'm sure Lisa would appreciate some, personal time to be mixed in with the work stuff and everything. I can understand that. Gene, that's great.
If I could, I would draw faster partially if I was willing to forego all that stuff and not be married, but then I would be so depressed I wouldn't be able to draw. So I do have to make some time for being a good husband and friend to my wife. But
I can attest to everybody. Lisa is terrific. Lisa Ha is a wonderful woman.
Yeah,
So no, they're a great couple, and I've had the pleasure of hanging out and spending time not only hovering over Gene's table, but even a meal. So I absolutely recommend
2 issues if I didn't have Lisa around. Might come out fast, but then after that, it just all fall apart.
Do you have any other cons left? Were you at New York?
No. I've only been to New York twice. The second year, and then last year, and I pretty much only go to New York if I have a strong reason to go. And so last year was for I went because Historia had come out. This year. How long is New York Comic Con? 4 or 5 days?
Oh yeah, it's 4 days.
Yeah, and I find a 3-day con a little exhausting, and a 4-day con super exhausting.
Yeah.
So I try to avoid longer cons. Like Fan Expo Chicago is supposed to be getting better and better over the Wizard World Chicago they took over from.
Yeah.
But I believe it's still a 4-day con, and it's kind of like, oh man, you have to offer me something really special if you want me to do a 4-day con. It's wonderful that you have a good show in the Chicago area, but not yet.
Oh, I hear you, buddy. No, absolutely. Well, and again, you and I both we missed the Fan Expo Chicago because we were in Terrificon in Connecticut.
Oh yeah, yeah, which is wonderful. I think that's a 3-day con.
It is a 3-day con, and it's really 2.5 days. You know, it starts like late afternoon Friday, so it's a short Friday.
Yeah, and also if any of you have never been to Terrificon and you love comic book conventions about comic books, it is one of the great ones. We're all trapped inside of a beautiful, fun casino on an Indian reservation with beautiful Chihuly glass and stuff like that.
Yes.
In a little side area. They bring in great legendary comic artists from the past, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez and folks like that, and then middle-aged, the older creators, and then a lot of younger creators too, and local
absolutely
creators. And just it's not about movie stars. Like the one movie star who showed up when we were there was I can't remember the John Wick guy, Keanu Reeves. But
right,
only because
that's
he was allowed in. Yeah, he was only allowed in because he wrote a comic book.
And it was a private signing for elite ticket holders. But Michael Rooker was there, and there's anime people. But no, you're right. No, Mitch Halleck, who you know is a good friend of mine, and no, he very much wants it to be a comic forward show, and not just the classic creators, but really be a good forum for new writers and artists as well. And I was in Star Trek heaven, as you know. I mean, I got to interview the Deep Space Nine cast and the Strange New Worlds cast.
Yeah, so there are some actors and stuff, but yeah.
But it's not the main focus. I mean, I mean, like Fan Expo, and I'm really glad. And I heard the lineup, and it was a much better lineup this year than it was last year, frankly. Because I mean, it really was more of an autograph Hollywood show than it was a comic show. So I'm always rooting for them. But I want good representation for the comic book people. Absolutely, man. So
and I want it to be shorter.
And yes, we do want it to be shorter. Absolutely. No, I agree with that. Well, Gene, again, people should go check out the definitive edition of May.
Yes.
And this is coming out through Oni Press / Simon & Schuster. So if you do a Google search for Gene Ha and May, the definitive edition, you should be able to find where you could pre-order the book. The book's coming out next spring from Oni, but it collects volumes 1 and 2. And as Gene said, tough to find the single volumes these days. Gene himself has used library copies. So, So let's no, that's great, man. There's a good call to action for everyone to go. And then we'll see the Crab Louie Minor Threats spinoff coming up with you and Gail Simone, and some other projects I imagine to be announced in the months ahead.
Me and Xander on hopefully Xander, if I can enlist him into it. On the new project, on the Gail Simone one, I'll say the story is beautiful. It's a ridiculous character. He's Swamp Thing, but made out of glued together crabs and crustaceans. But man, she makes that character she gives so much soul to that character and so much interest. And if you love things like Secret Six, it's like that. It's such a beautiful story.
That's excellent, man. Well, Gail's been teasing me, and I'm like, come on, man, we're due for a new talk. So I'm gonna bully her. Not only that, but the Red Sonja novel she's got coming up and everything. So I got to harass Gail a little bit more. She knows we're friends. It's cool. Exactly. Oh, don't worry, kids. I don't mean the real harassment. No. She's a friend.
But she's also like, there's no one better at dealing with trolls online that I know of than Gail Simone. She is.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yes. Here, Jason says, I just got in, but I wanted to mention how amazing Historia was. Can't wait to rewind and listen to the conversation. That's great, man. Well, thank you for chiming in. And Gene, thank you for, as always, a great conversation. Everyone, look forward to some of these great projects coming from Gene in the months ahead. And man, anytime. You know it. I mean, so hopefully with you and Xander, when you guys are, if it is Xander or whomever else for this unnamed project, you're always welcome back, Gino.
Oh yeah. Thank you for having me on. Man, I really, really want to eat a Kuma's Corner Burger with you now. And they have
Oh, absolutely, man.
yeah, they had Four Roses bourbon on tap. It's an amazing bar.
Absolutely. No, we're due for another meal. Absolutely. That'd be great. Well, thanks everybody for watching and listening. And like I said, the next episode, we're going to look at great made-for-TV horror movies of the 70s and 80s. And these are not the obvious ones. These are hidden gems. But you can find them on YouTube. So it's a great way to possibly spend Halloween after my conversation tomorrow night. And I think it'll give you something else to do Halloween weekend. So I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.